Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Ann Kittredge, performer, school advocate, and mother. Please enjoy Ann Kittredge. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Ann Kittredge, performer, school and parent advocate, and mother. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Mari. Can I just tell you how much I love your name?
Thank you.
Such a pretty name, Mari. Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much.
Your parents did good.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes, they did. Well, I'm very excited to have you joining me today to chat about creativity, as you have such a creative and full life. But before we get into the nitty-gritty creativity, why don't you take a couple of minutes and just let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Hello, everyone. So I was, born and raised in New England, and then met my husband in college, and we got married, came to New York. We created a family through adoption. We've got two beautiful children now in their 20s. Um, and Between being a professional performer for many years and parenting, I did decide my choice. It was my choice. I decided that honestly, I wasn't making enough money to justify having babysitters take care of my kids. I was like, what's the point? So I did take 11 years off, and I came back to the business several years ago and started on a solo vocal career, which has been surprisingly really wonderful. I've released two albums in the last 2 years. My music has been put on the radio worldwide. And so it's been, there's such a difference when you have this kind of success when you're older and when you're younger. At this age, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, this is all right, this is great, whatever. So it's been really rewarding. It's been really rewarding. Yeah.
I love that. And good on you for making the choice that works best for you. I was listening to something the other day where Adele was talking about having taken a similar break for her own caring of her child, and that things don't go away. And I wonder if when you made that decision there was hesitation or worry or fear that the performing parts would not come back, or what that was like.
Honestly, really honestly, I was a little angry
Mm.
because although it was my decision,
Hmm.
and I was in some ways grateful to myself that I was willing to make that decision.
Yeah.
Um, I had never in a million years imagined not working and performing. It never was, never.
Hmm.
And when that moment came where I was just looking at, everything, all the different elements of our lives, I was like, this is insane. We wanted these children, and it just didn't make sense to me. And so
Hmm.
um, I think I had a little bit of an identity crisis as far as,
Hmm.
oh, okay, so you're gonna do that. Um, and then what I ended up doing, which is, kind of ironic, is I became I became a parent leader in
Mm.
the public school system in New York City. And a lot of that had to do with bringing arts to schools, because I would do it volunteer, because what the heck? And it's just really kind of difficult to see schools not be able to provide that for students. And so I did a lot. I mean, I did a lot of that. And even to today, Mari, I'll be walking down the street and these kids who I knew when they were little, and they just, they have a kinship with me,
Mm.
that it just warms my heart because honestly, I don't recognize them. I'm like, you were really small the last time I saw you. And yet it's meaningful. It's so meaningful to them. And of course it's meaningful to me. And of course, when they tell me who they are, I'm like, oh, of course, but
Yeah.
um, boy, I can't even tell you. I have so many incredibly fond memories of
Mm.
creating value for those kids' lives through the arts. And so
Yeah.
if I wasn't performing, I was getting others to enjoy art, and that was good,
Yeah. Really
rewarding.
enriching lives and utilizing the arts and performing as
Yeah.
a tool. I love that. I think it's so important. Well, when you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Well, it's interesting. Creativity, which is something else I learned in my life and taking that time off, the depth of creativity is accumulative. It comes from experience. It comes from allowing yourself to be exposed, both personally and just your environment.
Mhm.
And the less you're exposed, the more limited I do believe creativity is.
Mhm.
And there takes a lot of courage to allow yourself to be both exposed and be exposed to, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not always going to work out.
Right.
You're gonna expose yourself to stuff that you're like, whoa, I'm never going near that again, or that scared the daylights out of me, or whatever. Not everything is a positive,
Yeah.
but it all feeds into creativity, all
Mhm.
of it. And when you prevent that from happening, you're taking away the source of whatever creative inclination you've been given. And we all have a creative inclination.
Mhm.
Mine happens to be performance, but I mean, whether it's art or writing or thinking, like,
Mhm.
mathematicians, or what you're doing,
Yeah.
communication and all of these different things. And interestingly, I would also like to suggest that if someone doesn't know what their creative inclination is, then that's even more reason to break out of whatever mold they
Mm.
have been in,
Mhm.
because that may be the reason why they haven't identified it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so wonderful to hear just that creative inclination and I'm curious, have you always known the performer side of yourself and that or like what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Well, I was one of those kids, and I don't think this is that uncommon. I'm sure you've had many artists who have said this, but I was one of those kids who was painfully shy when I was
Mm.
young. But my father saw something in me, and he never pushed me. He was never a stage dad, but he messaged to me in many ways that he believed in me as a
Mhm.
performer.
Mhm.
And I and even in my shyness, I remember when I was a kid, I would just, my cousins and I would decide, oh, we're gonna do a play together on Saturday, and then I would go to their house, and they'd be like, oh, we aren't serious. Like I was the one who was gonna make sure we were gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
was like, I really thought, oh, I thought we were really gonna. So there were those inklings in there that I saw throughout when I look back throughout my childhood, of those moments of like, oh, and God, that was so goofy, but whatever. And then um, and then my father died when I was in college, and
Mm.
um, it was quite traumatic for me. And I stopped performing. I couldn't sing. I couldn't do anything. And
Mm.
um, I realized that I had not taken ownership
Mm.
of my creative passion,
Mhm.
that my father had been a crutch, you know what I mean? And he
Mm.
was
Mhm.
and I had a decision to make. I really had a decision to make. And even, even after raising the kids and going back into it, honestly, I can't not perform.
Hmm.
I can't not. It's, I have to. I have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that transition being gone from more perhaps the professional performing experience for that chunk of time to stepping back into it? I mean, how was that?
Well, it was unclear if it was going to work out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's been 11 years. Can I still do this? And um, so, yeah. And I have to, and I was rusty. I was certainly rusty. That there's something to that. Um, but what was interesting in working with kids, and I worked, and the ages I worked with children with theater related stuff in those years was from pre-K through eighth grade.
Hmm.
And so they were younger, and as much as oh my gosh, I absolutely loved seeing them bring a song or a scene to life in their own childlike, manner. Near the end, I really started getting tired of me helping others do it and not do it myself. I did. I was getting itchy. I was getting like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, how much longer am I going to do this? I want to get back to it. So it was a little bit of an awkward transition, but within a year, I won an award
Hmm.
for my solo show, and I was like, oh, okay. And then COVID hit. So COVID hit, and that kind of was like a real damper, not good timing as far as me getting back into the business. But I continued with that with a show we called Virtual Shorts. There was a computer program called Jam Kazam, which still works. So if there's any professional musicians listening who don't know about Jam Kazam, you should know about it. It's this program where you can go online and you can create music with other people, and it is without any latency. So I was doing shows this is during COVID, with my music director in his house. I'd have maybe a bass player in upstate New York. I did something with someone in Belgium. It was all over the world, literally. And we would perform for like 15 to 20 minutes with no latency. Just, it was just partly about the technology, but also about being able to do it.
Yeah.
And then when we got out of COVID, um, I I'm really a storyteller. It's probably my strongest kind of music. I love jazz and all those different things, but I really love storytelling music. And near the end of COVID, I was looking back at different arrangements, and I really wanted to record them for my children.
Mm.
I literally was like, I think we all had those moments in COVID where, like, what's really important and what do we want? What do
Yeah.
we want our legacy to be? And one of my legacies was I really wanted my kids to have these things to kind of hold close to them of their mother's own creative, energy and what it was.
Hmm.
And I recorded them, and I didn't know what to do with them. And so I just as a fluke, someone mentioned someone to me, and all of a sudden, it was becoming an album that was being released and
Mm.
getting hundreds of thousands of streams on Spotify. And it won an award. And I'm like, well, how did that happen? And so then, seriously, so then my record company was like, you have to get back into the studio. So we did, and we just released another album this year called Romantic Notions. And so it's all, it's all been in some ways surprisingly quick, but in other ways, it's taken a lifetime.
Yeah. What advice do you have for anyone who is kind of making their own decision about stepping away and then coming back to a performing career years later?
Well, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I was doing it for the right reasons. I really, oh God, my mother, I wasn't the most motherly type of person when we decided to have children. Like, no one was going, oh, you're going to be the perfect mother. My mother was like, are you sure, Ann? So I really feel like I needed to concentrate on mothering, that it wasn't necessarily natural for me. So I really
Yeah.
and I wanted to be good at it, So those were all really good reasons, even though I have admitted to you that I went through a rough first year of that decision.
Hmm.
I eventually benefited greatly from that decision, obviously, and I hope my children did too. So I think that's one of the things, is make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and that it's not for anyone else but you and your children. It's okay that it's for your children, because honestly, I'll do things for my children more than I'll do things for myself. I mean,
Yeah.
they are your heart, and so it's okay to
Hmm.
use that as motivation. But and then when it comes to coming back, I think the thing that really, really I've understood, I'm a totally different performer from
Hmm.
post, and I'm a much more generous performer.
Hmm.
I'm a much more um, uh, uh, layered performer. There is so much that I've been able to bring that I otherwise would never have had any context to understand,
Yeah.
except because of that. And, you know, age doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't.
Hmm.
You just continue to find that creative outlet. And if you want to go back to a professional level, be patient, but just be firm
Hmm.
in your own commitment, and don't believe that there's any reason. If there's no such thing as too late, you know, it's just about getting your skills back to the quality you're used to.
Yeah, I love that it's never too late. That piece is so, I think, really important for people because a lot of people I talk to feel that they're former creatives, but how could they ever possibly get back into it for themselves again?
Well,
And
one of the benefits that I got too, because that's the other interesting thing. It's like you make a decision, and then you don't know how the heck you're going to achieve it. I still feel that way,
hmm.
but things happen. And so one of the things that happened early on when I is this guy Richard J. Alexander. You may not know his name. He's a director. He's directed a lot of Barbara Streisand's concerts,
Hmm.
and he heard my music, and he offered to direct my first cabaret show. And I was like, well, I'm no spring chicken, all these, all those. And he was like, Ann, he said, he's the one who said to me, he said, I don't believe in age. Age does not matter. It doesn't matter. He said, you're a talented woman. And so, I had that great benefit from someone of his stature
Yeah.
saying, you're worthy, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you strike me as someone who is able to find inspiration from a lot of different places in your life, but who or what is inspiring you these days?
Oh, wow. Who is inspiring me? Well, I'm trying to think of people that you know, because there are people who inspire me. Like I have this wonderful guitarist named Sean Harkness. I think he's a world-class musician, and we've done some incredible music together. Um, as far as contemporary artists, you mentioned Adele. I love Adele. I love her artistry. I also love, oh, I'm terrible with names. I've got the face in my head. Oh God, I'm not going to remember her name. Isn't that terrible? Oh, Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Billie Eilish. I love, 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 love. Um, but probably, you know, people who really I resonate with as far as how they chose to live their life. This is going to throw your audience a little bit because she's very dead, but Eleanor Roosevelt.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I've done some shows as her. I've been cast as her. So audience, you can imagine what I look like. Um, but if people knew the story of her life, how she was raised as a totally conventional woman with the expectations of the conventions of the late 1800s and early 1900s, and she went on to become one of the most powerful first ladies in the history of our country, and integral to creating the United Nations,
Mhm.
and civil rights, was one of the leaders for civil rights. It can boggle your mind,
Mm.
what her journey in life. Um, that was her. That was her creativity. Is just creating a woman's life that was,
Mhm.
as equal as it could be under the circumstances, and she always pushed the envelope. So yeah, that's certainly not music, but I just think she was unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I think we get inspired by so many different people in the world, living and dead, or, you know, some aspect of life that's inspiring as well. So, yeah, I think it's really beautiful to pull from different areas to kind of bring it all together to create something for yourself that keeps moving forward.
Well, you just described art. You literally just described art.
Yeah. Well, now for, I think there's some misconceptions about the starving artist, or that you have to struggle to be creative or an artist. And yet we do go through challenges in that creative process and creative experience. What are some of the challenges you faced and how have you navigated them?
Well, that little introverted self has never gone away. And
Hmm.
so, as much as I actually feel that it is a purpose of my life to perform and entertain, that it's a gift, and you don't
Hmm.
just put a gift in a closet. You share it.
Yeah.
You want people to benefit from the gift, right? Um, I have great anxiety before performances. I had a show this week, here in New York City, and I was particularly vulnerable going onto stage that night.
Mm.
You know, the election, whichever way you voted for it, was very dramatic,
Mhm.
and um, I couldn't quite find my center. And
Mm.
I got up on stage, and I was looking out at the audience, and we did the show. It was really a great show, and I think part of the reason it was so good was because I was vulnerable, because I
Mhm.
really, you have all of your tools and your plans for a show, but when you're vulnerable, it becomes a totally different energy. You're really, and I think it was, I'll never forget that performance. I don't think I've ever done a show with that kind of energy before.
Mm.
um, it was cathartic, and it was also um, there is a lot of people who don't necessarily value how the arts truly benefits humanity, that it's like this
Mhm.
extra thing. It's like, yeah, it's nice to have, but we really need this. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that art is going to have a time, because we certainly experienced it this past week, where its healing benefit and its escapist benefit is going to really, really be evident. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm looking forward to seeing how all different kinds of art forms really find their audience in a much needed way. Even when you even think of during the pandemic, what would we have done without
Yeah.
Netflix and without all of that stuff and all of those artists who were performing and all those? I'm like, what would we have done? I mean, yes, we walked more, we visited with neighbors from a distance more. That was all fantastic. That was
Hmm.
not going to work for us 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I really hope that there becomes a more conscious understanding of how valuable art is.
Mm. Yeah. How do we support people to transition in that way to understand how art can impact their lives in a positive way?
Yes, that is the question. And one of the things that I think happened during the pandemic is people really became comfortable getting their entertainment at home and putting on
Mm,
a TV, getting a large TV set, and and all these different things, and smart TV,
yeah.
and that was great. I have to say I loved it too. Um, but there is nothing to replace that community experience.
Mhm.
um, I went to a show the night after my show, and it was probably one of the most memorable nights in New York. I will never forget it. It was the most magnificent evening of
Yeah.
a celebration of the Grand Hotel. It was its 35th anniversary from opening on Broadway.
Hmm.
I would never have imagined that that evening would have been as impactful as it was, but I was so sated, both emotionally and musically. Uh,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't have if I had just put the TV on. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have, because it was being in that room with
Yeah.
everyone. And even I think you've probably heard this. This is no, unknown study, but I was reading about recently that it really is true that when you are watching a show or in a concert, um, heartbeats begin to match each other,
Yeah.
and breathing.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, like think about that. I mean, that's a real thing. You're not
Yeah.
going to get that if you're, in your living room watching TV, even though there's a million other people watching it. You're not all breathing at the same time. You know what I mean? It's an extraordinary element of
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, that collective experience that's
Yeah.
happening at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And because it's live, it'll never be the same way again. And you'll never be with those exact same people again or in the exact same seat. And yet, I'm telling you, that night, it was a Friday night at 54 Below. I will never forget it. It was just
Mm.
an amazing evening. And those are what, and life is about creating memories. Life is about when you're 80 and 85 or 90, it's the memories. My mother, is uh, I just saw it. I saw how important those memories are. And
Mm.
it is about creating memories.
Yeah. I love that reminder. It's so important to really acknowledge the moment you're in so that it can continue to live through your life.
Boy, is that true, because sometimes we don't, right? Sometimes we sometimes we're so busy taking pictures of the moment.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Let's do a selfie, okay? Which is great. I'm not against selfies, but there is something to, like, putting your phone away and just, like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Bob and I were just talking about, we haven't been to a museum in years. I'm embarrassed to say that, folks, and we're going to do it soon. I was like, we haven't. Oh my gosh.
Hmm. Yeah, the place to find inspiration or to have that experience that you may not have had by staying at home or watching something on TV, that visceral, what it is to stand before a piece of art that was created hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, and to
Oh
really breathe that in.
boy, you're good. That is so beautifully well stated. Yes.
Mm, thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could talk for so much longer with you today, but I'm so curious. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Love.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah.
That's it. It's love. It's love. It's love for myself. It's love for the people closest to me, and it's biggest thing of all. It's love for every single human being who chooses to share their time with me and with my
Mm,
with with
mhm,
with what I am sending out. Um, it's sincere love.
mm. So beautiful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about the work you have out in the world or how to get in touch with you or find you on the internet, how could they go about doing that?
Oh, yes, please do. Check out my website. It's annkittredge.com. And maybe you can put a
I'll put
thing.
it in show notes so people have
Yeah.
easy access.
And yes, and check out my albums, both Reimagine and Romantic Notions. And next year I'll be doing, I'm not sure where I'm going to be around the country yet. I might be able to get that to you soon, but I will be releasing a Christmas album for 2025. So we've been doing Christmas singles for the past few years, and we're going to put them all together, add a few more, and put out a full album next year. So look out
That's
for that.
so exciting. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Anne, for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
You too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.